Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life with Sterling Fox on AM 650.
Welcome back to our conversation about hearing on this episode of Boomer Life with our friends from NexGen and Mainland Hearing. NexGen, by the way, is NexGen. So it's nextgenhearing.com and mainlandhearing.com. Those are the two websites. The president of the company is Mark Hamley. Its chief audiologist is Dr. Ted Venema, both in studio, both talking about hearing. And Mark, I'm curious because this is your second go-round in the hearing business across Canada. So far, mostly in Western Canada.
That's correct.
And I underline so far because you're that kind of guy. But what is it? What are you doing? I asked you earlier, what the first round in terms of experience taught you that you're applying to NexGen and Mainland, your second go-round. And I'm curious, now that we've discovered, with yours and Ted's help, the appalling low number of Canadians with hearing difficulties who actually do something about it.
Yes.
How do you and Ted and your colleagues at Mainland and NexGen, how do you go about convincing your clients that these hearing aids are necessary, aren't prohibitively expensive, and will enhance your quality of life like you couldn't even believe? How do you go about that simple explanation? Obviously, 4 out of 5 of us don't care much.
Yeah, I know. And that's appalling, unfortunately, because those people are really suffering because they're enjoying a diminished quality of life.
Absolutely.
And, because their ability to communicate and express themselves, particularly to their loved ones, the people they interface with each and every day, like their grandchildren and like their wife and like their family, other members of their family or friends, their struggle, and they don't need to, and it's really unfortunate. But I think one of the major reasons why people tend to put it off, and how we try to build awareness, is through education.
Okay.
I think that's important, is that we have to get rid of this misperception, about what's available and the whole process that they go through, and also the cosmetic issue and the cost issue. I think education is critical, and that's what we do, is we go out and we try to not persuade people. Sterling, essentially our job is to educate, help to build awareness in people so they can make healthy and rational choices in their life.
So you go for the hearing test, and it's determined that you require some kind of technical assistance. You need hearing aids.
Right.
So what's a typical pair of hearing aids cost these days, Dr. Ted?
About $26,000. No, I'm just teasing.
Holy cow! I'm glad I'm sitting
probably
down.
That's probably the perception out there that they cost.
You see,
they're nowhere near that.
What you see, he thought that was funny. I almost fell off my chair.
He believed it.
I almost had a WorkSafe BC complaint here. But that's the perception. You're absolutely right, isn't it, Mark? It's an outrageous number.
Yeah.
But that's what some people. Got to be at least that much. That's what some people will tell you, and nothing could be further from the truth. So, take two, Dr. Ted. What's a typical price of a pair of hearing aids these days?
Low-end hearing aids cost anywhere from about $650 to $800 a piece. More expensive, the silver range hearing aids will cost you about $3,000 for a pair.
Okay.
Expensive hearing aids will cost you about $5,000 a pair.
Okay.
So you can take your ranges, and but it's not necessarily that one size fits all. It depends on the person's needs, what the person's lifestyle is, what kind of situations they listen in, what are their communication needs. Some people don't need high-end hearing aids.
Right.
Some people whereas you get your 45-year-old engineer who wants the hearing aid to make coffee for him in the morning.
Right.
Well, then, that person is going to want all the bells and whistles. So it really depends, but I can't, Mark's saying about education is so true. We're not here to persuade. You teach. When you explain, and you almost feel like Muhammad Ali. You dance like a butterfly and sting like a bee, because I like to explain things and get them light a fire in them, not under them.
Right.
So that they look at that and go, wow, I never knew that.
Well, and again,
It's never cool.
It's what you were talking about earlier, Mark. When you see, you can actually literally, in the course of the conversation, you can see the light bulb go on over the person's head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Click. Aha.
Yep. And
that's why.
It's that spark, and it's telling them something and explaining things, their symptoms that they've reported to you, and they're going, oh, that's why. Well, no doctor ever told me that.
Right.
Or you've explained that better than I've ever heard before. You know, that's when you're doing your job.
So does that happen? Does that happen fairly commonly in the hearing centers when people when your staff and your colleagues start explaining? Well, here's this. This will do this for you. This will do that for you. You don't have to pay absurd amounts of money.
No.
People settle down a little and start listening and become a little more receptive, I would think.
Well, I mean, I think as a caregiver, a hearing health care professional, Ted, and really, you know, if you're in this profession, you really have to have an innate sense of wanting to give care to others.
Right,
you know?
right, sure.
And I think as someone that fits that, you know, that profile, is that I think your job really is to continue to probe, continue to ask questions of that individual, so that you can get them from a fixed idea, which they may have got from their grandfather, that hearing aid is it just doesn't work, you know, or they're no good, to looking at technology today, which is simply amazing. And I've seen 40 years of it, believe me.
Right, yeah.
And what we could do 40 years ago is nowhere near what we're able to do through technology and through, I mean, if you take a look at the whole process, and the probing that we do and the questions that we ask, there's a tremendous amount of counseling that's involved in the whole oral rehabilitation process. You know, having a person go from, you know, the hearing test to actually being a successful user of the hearing aid. And
because there's a whole adjustment process,
absolutely. So there's an enormous amount of time that we have to spend in asking the right questions, not being persuasive, but just getting that individual from a fixed idea to now where it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And then suddenly being able to make a decision based upon fully understanding
newfound knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're like Mark says, you're going to have, oh, well, my friend, we wore hearing aids and they just sat in the drawer. You know, I knew somebody who had hearing aids and they didn't like them.
Right.
And they'll get these little fixed ideas, and when you can sit with them as a clinician, and every clinician's different. Everybody's got their own personality, so I'm not saying everybody should be the same, but when you can kindle an interest in them by explaining. What person are you going to be more interested in doing business with? Someone who takes the time to explain things to you. Right. It's explanation. It's teaching and educate. That is what the biggest success in our field is.
Well, now
that's where it lies.
I wanted to just say something else. We were talking about this at the break, but I think also is, you know, people come into your office and make an appointment to see you because something has driven them there. You know, there's some sense of, you know what, my life isn't as full as it and rich as it used to be because I'm struggling to communicate, particularly in some competitive, noisy situations or at the family Christmas dinner or things of that nature. And really, our focus has to be in working with that individual to help them get a sense of what that loss is. What is it that's impacted the quality of their life? And sometimes they walk in not knowing. And we have to really probe. We have to ask those right questions so that individual emotionally connects with, oh my goodness, you know, I haven't heard my grandchildren properly for the last 5 years. And I've missed them. They're growing up, you know. Until they get that emotional connection and begin to say, you know what? I need to do something now and not later.
And is that usually the sort of the tipping point, Ted, when people come for the hearing test and then follow up and get the hearing aids? It's because they recognize that missing link in their life. They can't hear as well, and rather than go, oh, well, I guess that's just a consequence of aging, I guess I'll just live with it, they decide to do something about it and hear again.
Let's face it, they dared to come in your office in the first place, so they're obviously, like Mark says,
they're motivated.
They realize something. They're there for a reason. And rather than scare people off by just business as usual, why not just take the time to explain their symptoms? They come out with a way better knowledge, and then you lay out a path of recovery.
Sure.
And it's just like, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I can.
Yep.
And we walk a walk with them. You don't see a person once.
Yep.
We see them after a week. We see them after 2 weeks. How are you doing?
Right.
Do you have any questions? Let me try and address your question. And let me try and adjust things if need be, because hearing aids are digital. They're like little computers.
Sure.
So you can adjust. Easy peasy.
And it may not be a 15-minute conversation. It might be a whole hour
Yeah.
we
Exactly.
spend with that individual,
Right.
that particular appointment, you see. So sometimes they come in confused and they can't quite understand why they're having difficulty and don't realize it takes the brain some time before it can adapt to hearing again.
That's right. That's right. Well, our guests in studio are here to sort out a lot of the confusion in the lives of people with hearing issues. Our guests are Mark Hamley and Dr. Ted Venema from Mainland Hearing and NextGen Hearing, and we'll be back with more right here on Boomer Life after this quick time out.
It's all about the baby boomer lifestyle. Boomer Life on AM 650.